What does it take for someone to be able to create partnership and also get capital to fund their business and to fund their enterprise?
When you're building a business or you're building a startup, you have to come from the perspective of what does my customer need so that I serve them.
It just felt like I became a checkbox. Oh, they'll bring you because they know that you wear this, you look like this, you attract or, appeal to a certain type of market. And I was just like, I'm tired. I'm not going to speak on another stage again. I made that decision last year. I was like, I have spoken everywhere. The last 3 years were so hectic because I was on a flight every 10 days. For 3 years, or 2.5 years, I was on a flight every 10 days. I had spoken at pretty much every important conference. And it just felt like after we finished speaking, nothing else happened. The next time they'll call me back, it's like, oh, well, we really need you. I'm like, sure, you need me, but then I also know like some amazing people that, would work well with what you're building. Half the contact I know, and this is why I felt like, okay, I should share it. Half the contact I know and I have access to, I don't need them. I literally do not need them. I don't need them for anything. They're not adding to my company, which is BGR. They're not adding anything to my company. They call me for, oh yeah, let's have a chat, let's talk about work. But they can't add value to what I was trying to build. So what was all those running around up and down, the sacrifices, the sleepless nights, the missing of everything, like birth, giving birth, somebody dying, wedding, birthday, you name it, I had missed it. All for what? To gain contacts that I don't need. And it's not like I wasn't in the right rooms. It just felt like it wasn't that market for me. So I said, okay, I'm not speaking on any more stages. However, I want to be behind the scenes. Whenever people are there deciding who's speaking, that's where I want to be. Wherever you're doing strategy meetings, that's where I need to be. Wherever you're, talking about access, especially for women, when you're talking about access, I want to be there because then I can be able to share it with others. And like a joke, we started this in 2024. I just said, okay, I know people that are coming for Anga. Amazing people that always come for Anga. But my guest list was, my RSVP list was 79 for last year's Anga. Out of the 79, I only had interest of going to like 5. No jokes. And I was like, I don't need to be in this room. You're talking about climate. I don't care about that. Africa is under 3%. Like, it doesn't affect me. Like it's not sustainable. Talking about, maternal health. That's not my area of interest either. You're talking about energy. No offense, but I'm not also in that space. I want to work on strategy around people, how to build systems. That's the room that I want to be in. I want to be around, visibility, representation. Those are the things that keep me up at night. I want to be around storytelling, creating powerful narratives. So afterwards, I said, okay, let's put together this database and let's share it across. And we started with a group chat. Owen is on the group chat. I think Onyechi as well joined the group chat. And I was like, hey guys, so this is my RSVP list for Anga. Pick, literally, even if it was the Secretary General's email that was on the RSVP list, we put it there. We're like, if you need a pass, email this. So we shared it, and this thing took off. I was like, pick whatever one applies to you and go. And 9 times out of 10, there will be somebody in this group chat that is also interested in that other thing. It may not be me, but somebody else will be interested. And this was how Heritage started. Just by giving people information and also making room for them, So we left Onga and we said, Maria, do you want to sit right there? We left Onga and we decided, okay, should we keep this group chat? Because it was only women and we're also in multiple chats. And everyone voted yes. I was like, why? They're like, well, it just feels like, people are actually interested in helping one another here. Like a joke. We raised our first sponsorship from that group chat. One of the other women supported another event with $1,000. Never met, by the way. Two people went to the Milking conference together in Abu Dhabi because they didn't want to be by themselves. And then others got, I think about 3 people got speaking engagements from the group chat. And it just felt like a joke. Okay? Then the next year came up. And this is where proof of concept happened. We started reaching out to conferences that had low female participation, specifically the Africa CEO Forum. Your participation is under 30% for women. I'll do the intro after. Yeah. Because I'm literally wrapping up in 2 minutes. I've been yapping because of you. I've been yapping because of you. So we reached out to Africa CEO Forum and said, hey guys, you have low female participation and you're talking about transformational change across the continent. We have an all-female delegation of young leaders as well. So you're ticking off 2 boxes, women and youth. How about we curate a list with your support, of course, and then you give them access to the conference. And your $3 million revenue quota for the business is ridiculous. There are not enough women-led businesses on the continent, indigenous, that are generating $3 million year on year. They said it's fantastic. We'll start planning. We've got our tickets. We did everything. And they came back and said, yeah, we're not interested anymore. I said, the fuck, what? I said, what? I was like, what do you mean? They're like, yeah, we want to maintain our criteria for participation. I'm like, but we've all discussed and agreed that your criteria didn't make any sense. It's not sustainable. And also, MTN is not an African company. Jumia is not an African company. And they still said no. So we said, all right, then I guess we're coming to Abidjan because we've already booked our tickets and there's nothing we're not changing, we're not canceling. And that's how the first event happened. We didn't know a single person in Abidjan. Yet we had 120 women, 100 women and 22 men that came for the event. And the conversation was around power, access, and capital. And every big name you can imagine came through. And we tasked them with what does it mean for people to have access to these curated spaces? What does it take for someone to be able to create partnership and also get capital to fund their business and to fund their enterprise? And last but not the least, why is power such a hard thing to crack? So from Abidjan, we voted again on the group chat, and everyone agreed that we should keep it going. And then we scaled up to New York. And New York was not a convening. It was establish a business case to establish partnerships and deal flows. Currently, there's two deals. One is with the Botswanan government that started at New York that is ongoing right now. The other one is a partnership that started with a Kenyan-based company to build, maybe this will interest you, Frederick, to build a racetrack for electric vehicles and races in Kenya. So we're like, okay, we need to establish that business lens. What does it take? How do we even present it? How do we use storytelling to be able to, create these opportunities? And that's what we want to discuss here. What does trade mean for businesses like yours and mine? This is my accidental company. And I want to encourage you guys that I was so intentional about keeping it very small. And part of the reason is because I wanted to highlight 2 people that I have met over the course of time. And I'm going to do quick intros. Jego. So I remember when I saw Jego's first fundraiser on, I think, Kickstarter. Was it Kickstarter? Here, you have to use this before you come
It
up.
was Start Engine,
Yes.
but
And I tried to invest. I tried to invest and put like $100, but Nigerian cards were not. They were not working on the platform. This is years ago, and then I bumped into him, and I was like, "I know you." Because he's always on LinkedIn. He's a star marketer on LinkedIn. Well, now, but I promise you, every time I log on to my LinkedIn, I see Jago. And I see their cool cars, electric vehicle. And I'm just like, this is so futuristic. I was so mad that I didn't put that $100. I was so mad. Imagine. I should put 1,000 now.
He's saying his valuation has increased.
Well, I'm sorry, but my $100 could have been 1 million in 5 years, you know. So, and I was like, let me reach out to him, and then I kept bumping into Chinyere everywhere I went. I bumped into Chinyere, and she was like, let's have an actual conversation versus hello, hi, you know. And we had a beautiful conversation. She was like, I need to meet more people. And I want them to also know what Future Africa is building, what Accelerate Africa is doing, our partners, what Itana is doing. Yeah. And I'm like, girl, you need to explain this to me, because even me, I don't understand what Itana is doing, you know? So I want to call them up because I want to be mindful of everyone's time. And specifically, Chinyere is going to talk about context before capital. And Jago, Frederick, is going to talk about strategic product positioning. You guys have 5 minutes. I know I took your time, but each of you has 5 minutes. Yeah. So please, and speak loud.
Okay. So morning, everybody. So thank you to Habiba and her team and what they've been able to build. It's a beautiful story, right, of how when you're called to purpose, you have to answer the call. So many of us are called, but we don't necessarily answer. So well done to you and what you're doing. So as she mentioned, Chinyere, I'm a partner at Future Africa. So it's an early stage VC firm that was started by Ian Aboyeji. He is the former CEO, co-founder of 2 of the largest businesses in Africa. One of them is Andela. The other one is Flutterwave. He then went on to support as the first investor in Move. We built the accelerator program, so that's what I run, is Accelerate Africa. We built it really coming out of the pandemic. We were running a pre-accelerator program helping founders get into Techstars and YC and 500 startups, but saw coming out of the pandemic how there was a dip and a decrease in the amount of support that these accelerator programs were providing, right, to African startups. So we started saying, okay, we're at a point where we have to make a decision. Do we want to keep sending founders out? Or because we understand how to build businesses, how can we actually create the infrastructure to build a business here without sending you out, right, from the continent? So we run the program twice a year for 10 startups in each batch. We focus on pre-seed and seed stage. So that just means you're under $1 million in revenue. You're under $10 million in valuation. We focus on 3 core things. One of them is pairing you up with a partner who has actually built a business in Africa. So they've built a business, they've scaled a business, they've been funding businesses in Africa. Examples are people like Bode Abifari from Flutterwave. She was the former COO. People like Ken and Joroje from Cellulant. People who have actually done the work that can open doors for you, right? That can open up their network and their access. So we focus on 5 pillars: storytelling, people and operations. We also focus on go-to-market strategy, fundraising, which includes legal and finance, and then we focus on the last one is product and technology. So that's a bit on just the program. So I wanted to make sure that people are aware, right? And it's sector agnostic. So regardless of what you're doing, as long as it's not something in the heavy industries like oil and gas or something like that, we want to look at it and we want to see it. So just for your awareness, definitely look it up. And I'm happy to answer questions about that. But part of what Habiba and I were talking about, and I probably have 3 minutes now, was founders are struggling, right, when it comes to getting investment. But there's a lot of context that comes before the investing side. So you, right, from a founder perspective, have the vantage point of, I need funding to fund my business. But oftentimes we don't actually talk about What does your investor need? What are the challenges that your investor has? Where are they getting their money from? Where's our fund getting our money from? So when you're building a business or you're building a startup, you have to come from the perspective of what does my customer need so that I serve them? But if you're looking for capital, what does my investor need, right? So that I can also serve them. That's the reality. If you don't want investment, you don't have to worry about your investors' needs. So that's what I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about today, right? Is how to be investable and how to serve your investor. So the context around the landscape right now, and I'm going to give you some numbers, so just try to stay with me because I don't have a slide. But does anybody know how much funding has come into Africa in the last, let's say, 20 years? How much funding? PEVC. Startups.
Well, probably less than 12 billion.
A little higher.
A little higher, 17.
He said 12 billion.
Probably
20. It's 20. It's 20. No, it's exactly 20. It is 20. So in the last about 20 years, 20 billion has come into the market. But you have to contextualize that. GDP across all 54 countries in Africa is 3.1 trillion. $20 billion is less than 1% of funding. I like to compare India and China to Africa. We have 54 countries, 1.5 billion people. China, 1.5 billion people. India, 1.5 billion people. The GDP of all of India, 2024, 3.8 trillion. One country. The GDP of all of China, 18.5 trillion. So just so you have a relative comparison, because again, people wonder, why isn't there as much funding available? How come I'm not getting funded? There isn't as much funding in our ecosystem. There isn't as much capital in our ecosystem. So that, again, you have to understand your investor, understand their perspective, and the context under which your investors are operating in. So why isn't there as much funding? About 10% of China's GDP goes into PEVC. The government alone, $1 trillion in the last 20 years, China. In India, it's about 4%. We're doing, across all 54 countries, less than 1%. So there isn't as much capital to begin with, right? So again, from your perspective as a founder, you have to understand where your investor is coming from. There isn't as much funding. Why isn't there as much funding? So that's the question. There isn't as much funding for many reasons that we've already talked about. 54 countries, 54 markets, tons of different regulations to have to deal with. If you're an investor and you're now thinking, what is the point of investing? What is the point? If you were to ask yourself, what is the point from your investor's perspective? What is the point of investing? Why do we do it? So that's a question to the group. Why do we invest? That's one reason. We do it to make money, right? Like, we do it to make money, fundamentally. We're not doing it because, yes, we want to develop, yes, we want to do all the great things, but the reality is you do it to make money. So you're now having to decide as an investor, where is the best place for me to make money, managing my risk and the reward profile? Where is the best place for me to do that? So again, thinking from your investor's perspective. The other challenges that we have are around the just due diligence process itself. It takes a lot more time, energy, and effort to diligence a company, right? So then the question is, okay, what do you then do with all of this context to become investable? You have to make it so much easier for your investor who's deciding, if my goal is make money and I want to do that, and I can pick between the US, I can pick between Europe, I can pick between all of these other places, but I want to invest in Africa. You as a founder have to find a way to rise to the top. How do you become the easy choice, right, to become invested in? There are opportunities for us to get more capital into the market, but until then, founders have to find ways to become investable. So what does that mean? That means you have to, A, do a lot of the diligence yourself. So you have to understand your unit economics. How does your business make money? How much does it cost you to get a customer? How much does it cost, right, to actually run your business? You have to be able to provide those unit economics and have some level of clarity about how your business actually runs. You need to actually have your legal, right, set up in order, your financials in order, and you need to have the people on your team that can help you manage those things. Because again, if an investor is having to think about where am I going to put my money, And they now suddenly have to see that you don't maybe have all of the right governance in place, you don't have the right legal docs in order, you don't have the right financial setup, you're adding to the load. And again, they're comparing between markets of where do I put my money to do what? Make money. So if it's harder to do that, right, you're making it, you're creating a situation where, or we're creating a situation where it just becomes a more difficult choice. So how do you as a founder make it an easier choice or an easier option? The second thing I would say is just around how you understand, the other thing that I would say in terms of diligence, that's one. The other thing is understanding your customer, right? Doing the work to actually understand who you're trying to serve. So sometimes we see founders and they're trying to serve too many different customers, too many different personas, too many different profiles. You have to do the work to really understand who your customer is, who you're trying to serve, and what your go-to-market strategy is to actually get as much scale as you possibly can. The last thing I would say is just around your operating expense. So one thing that we see that founders struggle with or have a challenge with is cash flow management, understanding your financials, right? And so you need to be in a position where you're spending time as a business owner understanding that part of your business. So you have to make the work of the investor who's in it to make money. You need to make it easier for them to make that choice. There's work on the side of the investor base to bring more capital into the market. That was the point I was making earlier. But you as a founder have to make it easier to be that choice, right? The other thing I would say is if you're not a founder, what can you also do? Because not everybody here is a founder. Part of the challenge that we have in our ecosystem is that we import a lot of things. Right? So again, if you're not a founder and you're thinking, okay, how can I help this dynamic or this situation? We need to be finding ways to support local and buy more local goods and services. 85% of the food in Africa is imported. 52 countries out of 54 import their energy sources. A lot of the policies that are put in place create this dynamic. So we have things that we need to work on, but we need more people supporting local, not buying the foreign products and this kind of thing. How do you support locally? The next thing that you can do is actually use some of the platforms that exist and even just put small money into local capital. How do we increase the amount of capital? All of us could be putting small. If you have a few thousand naira, if you have a few coins that you can put away, Bamboo, Trove, Chaka, all of these apps are giving you a way to actually put money into the system. That money can go to the startups that we're all talking about funding. So how can you, from your small place, actually put some of your money into funding some of these startups? So that's the second thing. The last thing I would say is just around policy advocacy. Part of the work that Habiba is doing, to some degree, is advocating for women and unlocking the opportunity. So how can, from your space and place, if you're not a founder, how can you actually advocate for some of the rules, the regulations, the policies that actually make it easier, right, to invest? So again, I wanted to just highlight or talk about the opportunity around being an investable startup, being an investable company, because we talk a lot about funding, but we don't necessarily talk about it from the perspective of what does your investor need in order for you to become investable, right? So that's what I wanted to highlight. Hopefully that's time. Okay. Yeah. Oh, you have a mic.
All right, thanks again, Engineer, for your points, and those are, fundamentally true. And when we look at the entire ecosystem, there are different parts that are critical to us attaining success. And introducing myself once again, my name is Frederick Apogene, founder and CEO at Jego. And for us at Jego, our mission is to simplify access to electric vehicles, and we're doing that by making sure that the average Nigerian has access to renewable energy. Our positioning in the market is that of, we want to sell millions of electric vehicles or contribute to driving the adoption of millions of electric vehicles across the continent and beyond. So we came into that market with the understanding of, if we're going to do this, what is that back-end infrastructure going to be like to ensure that our customers have a complete customer journey versus a broken customer journey. When I bought my first electric vehicle in the United States, actually, it was in 2022, 2021, I knew more about the car that I was buying than the salesman because of obviously my space, what I do for a living. And they sold me just the car without the electric vehicle, and it was Mercedes, so I expected better. So they sold me just the car without the charger. The salesman actually even gave me an Amazon link without a specific charger to choose from, and I actually found out that on that list there were fake chargers. For example, Shell. I learned from Shell in the valley that they actually don't have chargers yet. But so a Mercedes sales representative sold me a car, got his commission, but he didn't complete the process because I can't drive an electric vehicle without being able to charge it, right? So there was no like, these are credits to all the different charging stations. So, and this was years ago, right? Obviously Mercedes, I'm sure they've learned from that. Same thing with when there was an issue with the car at the time, they had to call Germany to get answers. So this was, again, years ago. So imagine if that's happening in the U.S. and same with the energy side. I live in California when I'm in the U.S. and in California, you know that California is the largest EV market in not just North America, but I believe the western part. Comparable to Europe, London's about the same size, and France. But there's so many DC charging stations across California, which then put pressure on the grid. America's grid is not modernized, and countries like China, where electric vehicles were quickly adapted, or the scalability was they run into a lot of challenges, was because they invested in modernizing the grid and then creating a lot of decentralized renewable energy infrastructure that supplements or adds to the grid, which is why they're able to innovate without limits, because in order to innovate you need infinite energy. And that is one of the reasons that people don't talk about, but that's one of the reasons that they're growing faster than everyone else. I read recently that they finished a train station in one day. It took about 1,500 people. That means in order for you to do that, you need to have basically godlike energy. No pun, no, basically infinite. So for us at Jego, when we came to Nigerian market, because of limitation in time, I grew up here, born and raised in Nigeria. I already know the plight of the Nigerian, which is having to turn on candle where there's no fuel or diesel. Parents have traveled, so you have to siphon fuel out of the car, put into the generator. And from a health perspective and from different reasons, I would never do that today. But you can imagine that was because as the first son, the adult in the home, I had to make sure that, not adults, but I thought I was an adult. I was making, those decisions as a boy to make sure there was power in the house. So coming into this market, why did we choose electric vehicles first? What is the reason? Again, positioning, which is my cousin. Actually, I have a tattoo of him here, Jesse Tabansi. He died in a car accident here, phase one, not too far from here, the roundabout, in 2018. And the first response was they don't have fuel. And I also already at that time, I was already investing in a lot of different technology products, and also built a lot of technology solutions for NBA, NFL players and different startups before I actually started my own company that was on, led to where we are with Jego. And the data I had access to showed that combustion engines would start getting phased out, from 2022, and from 2020 was when it was accelerated. It actually happened earlier than the schedule. So I ruled that out, combustion engine out completely, because why invest in assets that will get phased out eventually? Recently, there's the Nigerian government is working on banning ICE vehicles, or banning importation of ICE vehicles by 2035-ish, and that's the same consensus across the world, right? So also management, tracking, and then of course we started with an autonomous vehicle, which we also had to scale down and dumb down, which is what are the fundamental things that we need first? Energy. Providing that electric vehicles have inverters, they have BMS, and they have batteries, the same things that are found in renewable energy systems. So when we came into the market, we came with that intention, using the same electric vehicle technology to provide power to the average Nigerian, the 90%. And fast forward to today, we've built a couple megawatt hour of energy stations here in Lagos, in Lekki and Ikeja. We have a 1.5 megawatt hour station that's basically a mini grid powering the hotel. And then by next year, Q1, we'll be launching DC charging. So partnering with other businesses as well, beyond just charging, is to provide power to their entity, their ecosystem, lower reliable power. What we've also found is on the enterprise level, even down to the SMEs, large enterprises and small enterprises, their first priority is power for their businesses, power for, or reducing or eliminating that cost. And we've been, basically, our customers today save billions of naira collectively, and they've gone on to create new sources of income using our infrastructure, whether it's energy, transportation services, because they're lower cost. And it's women who are part of this ecosystem who are creating new sources of income because of Jego. They are saving, they're able to put money back into their households versus this flowing out. You mentioned earlier about how there's not enough capital in the ecosystem. Part of that capital that's not flowing into the ecosystem is the cost on diesel and fuel that's flowing out daily. Nigerians actually have money, but it's being spent in 3 different places daily: your house, your business, and transportation. Whether you're paying for the cost in the business, you're paying indirectly or directly. And then food, cost of products across the ecosystem. Since 2021, I first started visiting in 2021, and then moved back about 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago. And what I've observed is the cost of fuel and diesel and electricity has 4-5x in the last 4 years, but income has not grown that same way. So it's a national security issue. So for us, our positioning is providing what we call great customer experience. Innovation isn't always technology, right? I mentioned my experience with a great automobile and technology giants who literally even has something called MBUX, Mercedes-Benz user experience, but they had a broken customer journey that could easily have led me to, which I did actually sell the car, and then go to another company that provides that full ecosystem. How many of us use iPhones or Apple products? We all most likely do because of that connected ecosystem. I don't have my phone with me, but I have my MacBook, which still has all that, the entire thing, right? So you go to the Apple store, wherever, even same here in Nigeria, even though there's no an official Apple store, but you still get aftermarket servicing. And that is what we're doing at Jego, which is providing that full customer experience and ensuring that our customers and our target market, they're empowered with our solutions. Beyond just providing renewable energy, they're able to provide lower cost transportation for their household, for their businesses. We have customers that are spending over $1 billion naira on just transportation every year, right? The average barber, the average SME, whether in the marketplace or in a corporate environment, is spending more on energy than they actually realize. And they're actually not tracking this because it's a day-to-day survival thing, right? And if we're going to grow, we need to address those areas. China grew because they addressed those areas. It's something that's like, it's not obvious, but in America, in California, one of the reasons I'm pretty sure that in Oakland and the Bay Area, where there's a high rise of crime, is because the cost of transportation and cost of energy also grew significantly. And over there is even worse because if you don't pay your rent, you get evicted, right? Everyone lives in trailers and homelessness. So here, what the difference is, there are other tech companies that have, what is alleviating that national security pressure is the tech companies that have created gig earning possibilities. So now if I'm not making money, I can go drive Uber or drive Bolt or any of the other rideshare companies that exist, and especially now there are EV companies in the rideshare space that are helping reduce their cost on fuel because most of them were not taking money home. You mentioned Move earlier and the challenges around Move and the Nigerian market. So it's for us, it's fundamental that energy stations, not charging stations, are built across the entire market, especially highway corridors where, like from Lagos to Benin, the east. Right now, like when we went to Osun State, we've traveled a lot with our electric vehicles, like going to Osun State, Ogun State, and back. We found that there's no reliable charging station seriously, Sterling Bank's charging station does not work, and the only other one that is reliable, they close at 4 p.m. and the other one that works is closes at 6 p.m. So there's a high demand for electric vehicles, but there also needs to be not the demand for energy, but the deployment of that infrastructure, because government is not going to do it quickly enough. There is support from policy levels now that are kicking in, but there needs to be more around that government backing. If you look at China, and same thing in the U.S., especially in China, China's government backed every single startup. There's over 160 electric vehicle brands in China, and they're still able to create value. And you can imagine, you mentioned the comparison to the Indian and Chinese market. So collectively, Africa brings their market together. We can create brands that rival, because it's the same thing that China did, right? Which is reverse engineering the Western product. So for us, positioning ourselves as a company that provides that full customer experience was key for us. So we don't sell to our customers just one piece of it. We sell them basically we sell them peace of mind, and we say welcome to freedom at Jego. Thank you.
Chinyere, thank you so much for giving us that context. Recently, I was at a conference, and it was ABAN, and what they had spoken about was Africa must fund Africa. And what is the sustainability in that? Like, when you contextualize Nigeria or Africa, 54 countries, to be the size of California, like, it's understandable that there's not enough money to go around, because they're probably like maybe top 5 economies: Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, maybe Kenya, maybe, that's a strong maybe, Algeria, right? Exactly. So in fact, out of those 54 countries, there's 2 countries that are not even in sub-Saharan Africa. And we all scream and shout that Nigeria is the giant of Africa. But how giant are we if we're even unable to fund like a revolutionary idea like Jego? I wish you brought those Jego nanopods. Okay, so we're all going to take an exercise to go and see the car after this session. But I want to bring the conversation back to the table. I'm very solution oriented, just because I feel like challenges or problems just give me anxiety. I don't have time to ruminate on that. And I strongly believe in partnerships and collaboration. Like, a lot of the people actually here, like, I was a client of Adesua. She's an interior decorator and a manufacturing person, so she builds furnitures. I don't even want to know how much you spend on energy consumption. Do you understand? And transportation, like, she did my house in like 2 weeks or less, which was great, but I'm pretty sure there was a premium that I had to pay because of the lack of great infrastructure. So your angle would be Nigerian manufacturing reality with the implications. So for me, I think about the Shinobi chair. It's one of my favorite designs that she has. I mean, I see it everywhere now, but there's just something about that chair. I wish there was a way that it could be replicated, trademarked, or put a patent on the design or something, and then export it. Because I've also seen some of those designs in Rwanda, and I'm pretty sure it's because it's on social media. So if you had the opportunity to work with a company like Jego that provides, energy at a much more sufficient level and a better cost long term, what would it take for you and him to end up working together?
Definitely making our life more easier. So one of the challenges we are having as manufacturers in Nigeria is energy. You can't take that away because, first of all, that increases our costs of production. Secondly, there's a delay. If there's no power, we can't actually work without power. There's so many things we need to do with energy, and if you do not have power, you can't work. Now, when the cost of energy is so high, the cost automatically goes up. That's why there's increase in a lot of things we do, in the prices of things we do. So working with JEGO will enable us in such a way that our prices come down. Our prices come down. Now, let's even go into the aspect of mechanization. We locally do things here. We do things with our hands because we do not have the machines. Now, even if you have the machines, you can't power the machines. They need to operate with energy. So working with JEGO will truly be like a sustainable path for us to scale.
We have electric pickup trucks, 100% not hybrid, that can go up to 500 kilometer range. They're different sizes, of course, in sense of your options. So for us, our angle, again, part of the position is we focus on enterprise, SMEs, all the way to large enterprises. Some of our customers today, like I mentioned, are saving billions collectively. And then we have, small startups using our solutions to power their businesses, the daily SMEs, and then large enterprises like LB Farmer behind Amatem Softgel, if you're familiar with those guys, or Dara Fit Farm or something. I think that's some of the other products. So these same companies have daily logistics. Every business, primarily in Nigeria, deals with logistics. So the commercial side of it has been our focus, has been how we've been growing. Those same businesses have individuals, right? You have your own household, but you also have your business. So our solution can not only power your business, you can take it because it's modular. You take it to your home. You can have the large system, take the small part, 5 kilowatt, 10 kilowatt, just like a piece of a puzzle. You take it to your home, you plug it in there, and your home has power. We have customers that have moved power interstate from Lagos to Delta because of that. So it's, you don't feel, I worked with Tesla Solar in my early 20s. So I saw Tesla build from the energy angle first. Solar panels on roofs, the power walls. And then the first time I saw a Tesla was actually employees that from their earnings being able to buy a Tesla. So Tesla and most technology companies in the Bay actually build from that foundation, crossing the chasm market, which is the business guys, MTN, BlackBerry, most of the largest companies that cross over across the chasm successfully. Think about how can we make that cost cheaper. So one of the ways to make it cheaper is when businesses buy it at scale, which then makes it accessible to individual customers. But if you pass that cost initially, because in the initial stages, these things are still expensive. Remember when flat screen TVs were like $10,000 and $15? Now you can buy it for $250, $300, because the enterprises, the scale has entered the market, and that's our strategy. And this market, Nigeria and Africa in general, presents a lot of scale opportunity. So companies like yours, I grew up in a market. My father and our family business is around architectural finishes, manufacturing, so I'm familiar with all that. And there's a lot of energy daily and logistics daily. That's the biggest costs. So any way we can help, we'd love to add that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adeswa. You can give the mic to Maria. So Maria runs Nord Collective. And Nord Collective is a collective of artisans that build. There's a northern heritage to it, which is one of the reasons why I'm passionate about it. But they also build products using sustainable materials. They also try to preserve the heritage techniques that these artisans use. And Maria was supposed to also do an event at Anga, but just the thought of moving these artisans to go to New York and to take their products. However, what she did was she then showcased at Lagos Design Week, which was beautiful. She had them weaving like right there. She had, some of the products that they had made. And I want you to talk a little bit about social infrastructure and think about it from the funding lens, because both Maria and I were fundraising around the same time. We were fundraising for Heritage. She was fundraising for Nord for New York. And she ended up having to push it because just imagine 20 artisans, you're trying to get them to New York. Where does she even start from? Where does she start from? So I wanted to talk a little bit about Nord, what you do, and then speak to Chinyere, because I feel like there's a policy angle that investors could also open up. And why I'm confident about this conversation is because, her reach, your reach, our reach, the whole table's reach could, eventually you could get those artisans, even if New York is not the first place that they go to. It could be taking them to, Mozambique. It could be taking them somewhere within sub-Saharan Africa where even their products could even be received better, So, Mario, go ahead.
Okay. I like how you're ready for me. So, taking them there is audacity. That's all I can say. But it was quite a learning experience for me. So of course my name is Maria, like she mentioned. I'm the founder of Nord Collective, which is a cultural agency that champions northern Nigerian artisans, and we do this in 3 ways, which is one, put them on global stages, could be through the exhibitions, pop-up events like Design Week that she mentioned, and also just own events, just anywhere to put them on global stages and their works. Then the second thing is providing them with capacity development programs. The third thing is connecting them with global markets. So this is how we operate. We started Nord Collective just a year and a half ago. It started with me. I'm a filmmaker and photographer. I don't really do much of that, but storytelling is my thing. So I wanted to do a photo exhibition back in 2021, but then went to Kano and I saw these artisans, how they were working. I realized that this was so much bigger than what I was trying to do, and I was afraid that if I were to do that documentary or the photography exhibition, people will attend, watch it, and then forget about it. I didn't want that to be for entertainment. So I took a step back, quite a step, because I came back 2024 from 2021. What I forgot to mention actually was those pictures, because I didn't have the exhibition, I ended up posting some of them on just my Instagram. And the response that we got was not expected. So many people were reaching out to us trying to find these artisans. I didn't even realize how difficult it was for other people to find them, because I'm from Kano, I'm from the north. It's easy for me. I could at any time, right? But apparently there were so many people that were trying to reach out to these people, but they didn't know how to get to them, right? So we worked particularly with the Adire ones that we call own dyeing pits, Go Farmata dye pits, right? And if anyone knows the brand This Is Us, that is where they actually do this. So they support the artisans at the Go Farmata dye pits in Kano, and also buy their cotton from Funtua. Same in the north. We also work with tanners. So we also work with hand weavers and potters. So these are the ones that we're focused on at the moment. Then traditional tailors, of course, these four. So people were reaching out to us. Fast forward to 2024, we decided which direction to go with. The best way to just put this together, decided to call it Nord Collective and make it an agency where we could do all the things that we want to do and also make sure that the businesses stay alive. When we talk about social infrastructure, honestly, we just go to schools, hospitals, and other public things that we do, but then we tend to forget about the cultural and the creative part of this, that particular layer, and that is where Nord Collective sits. So We don't build hospitals, we don't build schools, but we are doing our own bit in the creative and cultural, yes, in the creative and cultural industry. And Nigeria has one of the most vibrant creative economies in this world. But we find that we don't have the infrastructure to to just back that and then make it scale. I mean, we have to appreciate the the effort, excuse me, that the government is making already. But unfortunately, as a creative, and when I think I can speak for so many creatives when I say it's a little too late, because so many of us have come pretty far without it. But then it doesn't mean that we get to where we are. We can get there without us, without the government or other investors. We still need that support, right? So we don't have that to back it up, which is usually a problem. And it's, for me in particular, with Nord, it's something new, because even the products that we put out, so we don't really put out products ourselves. So what we do is, for example, we love to see the north through people's eyes, non-northerners, I mean. For example, let's say, okay, you're an interior designer. Okay, so I could come to you maybe and say to you that, okay, you have this project coming up. I have artisans that have fabrics, right, or leather. Can you use your? Can we collaborate? And then we put out a collection. We have done that where we have done that in the fashion. We have done that with a fashion designer. Unfortunately, we didn't put that out because it was supposed to be for our exhibition in New York, but we're still opening our own gallery now, which is amazing. So we'll put it out. We also collaborated with another designer from South, fragrance designer. We gave her a couple of notes where we say, okay, for me, this is what I think of when I think of Kano. I think of the markets, I think of the colors, I think of so many things. What can we create? And we created 2 incredible diffusers from that, and one of them literally smells like my grandmother's home. And this fragrance designer has not even been to Kano, which is incredible. So we try to collaborate with people to create these products and put them out. And for our exhibition, part of the reason why it didn't happen, because of, I mean, that's besides the logistical reasons, is the funding. We had so much difficulties trying to raise funds. People always thought it was a cool idea, but it was difficult for them to commit. Right? I understand. It's a new thing. I'm also a creative, so I'm trying to bring people closer to me that can handle the business part of it, so we can get our numbers. I saw what you were saying about investors, so I completely agree with that. But I find that they just think it is really cool, but it's so difficult for them to commit to it, to a point where I was like, you know what, this project, the agency itself is too important to wait for anyone. And I have another business, which is a cafe. So we try to use that. So basically the agency became the cafe CSR. So it was me and the cafe pumping money into the agency and making all these events happen, because I figured that if I put my money where my mouth is, then you understand that I truly mean business, right? And then if I also mean business, if I truly put my money where my mouth is and you see it, I also have power now to say yes or no to investors and make sure that we're properly aligned before we get into anything. So we really had problems with the funding, and I would love to see a place where, a time where people can actually pay attention to this vision, the creative and the cultural economies, because based off of my little research, when we were just 3 people on the team, we were talking about a $10 billion industry in plain sight. those who know, and who they happen to be is Europeans who gatekeep it. They don't want other people to know, and the others really just don't know so much. So it would be nice to see, to have place where we have these policies, production, and opportunities come together. That is what the social infrastructure would mean for me. That network of having the people and the production and the opportunities, so we can just continue this. And then when we have that Nigerian prototype, we can take it out to other countries as well, because I mean in Africa, because so many of these communities are suffering from the same things. I mean, I have seen so many businesses where I just remember I have 90 seconds. But I'm a yapper, you don't do that.
Because I'm like, I gotta remember everything you're also saying.
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. Okay,
It's
maybe
okay.
I should stop here.
Yeah.
But you get the point.
I
It
do.
would be nice for us to have that.
Yeah.
So we can also share it, because the thing is, I feel like a lot of it is being gate kept. It's a very if you know thing, and the ones that know don't really want people to think they don't want to share, and they don't want you to think that it's a big deal. Yes.
So remember I was saying that, so first of all, well done, right? Because I think that the
Thank
thing
you.
that we have across Africa is our culture, and it's represented through businesses like this, right? And it's difficult, but you've been able to find a way to fund it, which is important. So there's 3 things that I wanted to ask. 1, are you using technology? 2, what is the vision that you have for the business, right? And 3, from a virality perspective, how are you using social media? Just like really quickly. Technology,
Yeah.
vision, and virality. So
So
real quick.
we are opening our gallery
Okay.
this year. Sorry, not this year. January
Yes.
30th.
Yes.
So we're going to curate exhibitions, and we'll be using tech to tell stories. That's what we use tech
'Kay.
for. So like mapping.
But you don't have a platform that has all of the people who are weaving for you, where they all have a profile, all of their products are listed. Like, you don't have something that connects and helps you scale.
No, not
the
yet.
people.
We don't. But it's
Okay.
certainly something that we're working on already. We're just working on the legal part of it,
Okay.
because it's a whole thing that the Ministry of Culture has to approve.
I was going to mention the Ministry
Yeah,
of Culture.
yes. So the Ministry of Culture has to approve that. The good thing is it's done that. So now it's between us and the artisans, because it's so disorganized,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
For example, you have 10 dyeing pits in Kano,
Mhm.
but you have 2 that are the main ones. Yeah, 2 that are most functioning,
Mhm.
but getting them together, it's a problem. So we literally had to encourage them to go form these societies and do a CAC.
Okay.
So we did that and actually paid for that.
Makes sense.
And then some of them are, because some are more successful than the others, like the ones that they do are direct, because that one has come into our
Mana,
Nigerian
before she
pop
kills
culture.
me, vision. What is the vision? So I got you on tech. Vision.
Okay.
What is the vision? Yeah.
That is to just make sure our business, these crafts don't die.
Okay.
That's just it. So it could be through storytelling.
Yes.
It could be these collaborations and the products that we
Yes.
put out.
And then virality. So how are you using social media?
We're literally toning it down.
Okay.
It's so much. I mean, we don't have so many followers
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we have so many people that come to us from social media,
Mhm.
and we're trying to just like not put too much out right now, in the sense, because we're trying to just do all the legal things that we're supposed to do now,
Okay.
which is, I think we should finish by January, because we already have the most important thing, which is the approval from
Yeah.
the ministry. But social media, what we do right now is we put out these stories, and then the events that we go to, we also put them out. We're putting out our documentary by next month
Okay.
also. So some of these things, we haven't put them out yet because we're waiting to open our own physical space.
Got it.
In
Got it. So that
January.
makes sense.
Yes, so but we do put out our pictures that we go out to these communities and take, and also put out their stories in general.
Got it.
Yes.
So when you're looking for investment, part of what I was describing was you have to be investable.
Yes.
Part of what we look at for being investable is, can you get to $100 million in 10 years? 10 years. $100 million in 10 years.
In 10 years, yes.
So in order to be investable, that is one of the things we would need to look at is, can you get to a $100 million business in 10 years? Because again, you have to do the math and think about your investor. Your investor is taking in money from other people. Other people are expecting what? Money back.
Yeah.
not just what they paid you,
Yes,
but
of
plenty
course.
money back so that they can now use that money to then put it back into the ecosystem. So they have to see very clearly, again, your idea is amazing. Why are we here? To make money.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be able to demonstrate you can get to that 100 million. If that's not the case, something that I'm passionate about is how we connect the ecosystem to small and medium enterprises. 90% of all the businesses in Africa are small to medium, right? Micro to small to medium. How do we bring more technology to that side? Because that, I think, could accelerate our economy so much faster, right? But that's an aside. But with where we are right now, if you want VC funding, that's one of the measures that they're going to look at. So you might want to look at places that are doing, Bank of Industry is doing loans. You might want to look at grants, right? You might want to look at revenue-based financing. You're making money based on what you're generating. They're able to give you financing based off of that. So you may want to look at alternative sources of funding, because it just doesn't sound like at this point VC equity-backed financing is the place that you need to be at this moment. So that's what I would advise.
It's a hard reality check, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good one.
It is.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Because the whole point is, I mean, when you have these conversations with people from these diverse industries, you understand what it is. Yes, you have
Yeah.
more clarity.
Yeah.
Yes, you absolutely do.
Okay. Thank you, Maria. Can you give it to Onyechi, please? So Onyechi was our media host for our studio room host for the Heritage House in New York, and since then she has become my personal voice everywhere. When I'm like, bring her. So she's a newscaster, and interestingly, I wanted to get your take on narrative and how it can shape African stories, or how it is currently shaping African stories, because at the end of the day, the truth is that before we arrive somewhere, the news has already arrived. And I want you to talk about it in context of Nigeria and Africa briefly, because we actually need to go. What do you think as the voice? And of course, I'm sure you do a lot of research around investment. What do you think your role is in shaping how investors see and perceive us?
Thank you so much. I'm really honored at this opportunity. I'm Onyinyechi Obaro, presenter with News Central TV, Nigeria. Yes, I hosted the Heritage Collective, that's the media content room, and it was a very great privilege. Thank you so much, Mr. Bieber. All right, talking about narrative, I've always understood that it is important that we tell our own stories. Africa should tell African stories. Nobody can tell your story more than you are operating or even wearing that shoe. So it's really nice if we can portray ourselves in a very good light, tell good stories about us. I've always clamored for allow Africans to tell their own stories, because we have talents in here. Yes, we do not have the structure for those talents to be harnessed, but we have talents in here. It's just for us to get the right structure. That's how we can have that economic popularity, or even have portray ourselves in a very good light for people to be able to come get themselves acclimatized with us. Because the truth is, what people see out there, what the few that are not Africans are telling, are not true stories. So if we are allowed to tell our own, I work with, and I believe that I should be able to tell an athlete's story, an African athlete's story, because I am an African, and I know the challenges a typical African will face. An American will not understand that there is challenge at home, on the home front. There is this pressure from the home front that when you go out of Nigeria, you would carry the load of the family. You should be able to be an example, be the source of income for the family. So I understand that, because I am an African and I'm a Nigerian, and I know that pressure from home. But an American telling that story would not understand that there is a pressure at home. We just feel like this person is too desperate to flourish out of the sport that he or she is engaged in. So I believe that the narratives are very, very important. Let's allow Africa, let's tell good stories. There are good stories that comes out of Africa. If we can tell them more than the bad things. Americans will always tell you the good things about them. They never tell you that there's around their areas. Like you said, California, that's a place where you have people who are sleeping on the streets. There is a place also in America that is so dirty. Yes, not clean enough, but they always. I'm telling you, but they. So, but they'll always show us those good parts. So, if we
Chicago.
can just. So I believe if we can just knock off the evil things, yes, there are a lot of problems in Nigeria. But the truth is, with all the problems we are going through here in Nigeria, when you go out there, you flourish. Why? Because you let those they're still home, they're back home. Here it's a new dawn. I need to do something better. So if we can move on away from the bads, the evils, then we can be able to tell good stories that will make people see African businesses and see us in a good light, that they can, work with us, that we're good people, that they can do something meaningful with. We don't have to always tell the story. People that say that swindle people do not have to be Nigerians or Africans. It's because we're telling that story. So a typical American will only say, you're a Nigerian, because we've told that story too much. So let's begin to tell better narratives that will make people want to accommodate us.
Thank you, Onyechi. And last but not the least, because we do have to wrap up, David. So David runs a derivatives exchange platform. He's going to tell you what that is. And I was introduced to him because he was at the process of setting up. And when he was telling me about a bit about it, the first thing he said was sort of like betting, but it's not. And I drew the hard line there. So I said, I'm a Muslim. That's haram. I can't even comment. I can't even participate in this conversation anymore. And he was like, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm like, you were the one that said it. And he's like, so this is the challenge that I was struggling with, because we're not a betting platform, but it could be perceived as that. And he has to go through regulatory and compliance with SEC and all of that in Nigeria to even register his business and to get his licenses. Now, I want you to talk a little bit about that, just because context is important. For me, the moment I heard that word, I drew the line. And I'm pretty sure sometimes in the investment landscape, the moment you hear one word, it's like done. There's nothing more. I can't say it. And similarly, in market positioning or your product positioning, your messaging is really important. Like, we don't say problems, we say gaps. We don't say this, we say that. So I want you to talk a little bit about what Cloudy is trying to do in Nigeria, and what it is versus what it's not.
Thank you, Habiba.
David, literally 90 seconds.
90 seconds?
90
okay.
seconds.
So thank you, Habiba. My name is David. Put the mic down.
No, you need it for
Okay. My name is David Ume. I'm the founder of Clouty. We're soon going to be changing the name. We are building a prediction market where people can trade on the outcome of anything. We turn events into markets and opinions into signals. So in Nigeria, in the world, everybody has an opinion on anything from the weather to politics. But as you know, the main thing you can trade your opinion on is sports. You can bet on whether Man U or whether anything is going to win, but you cannot trade on the outcome of whether a new policy is going to be released or interest rates with the MPR is going to go up this next monetary policy committee. And so by allowing a market in a place like Nigeria where news is volatile, where every announcement, every headline has a big impact, whether it's energy related, whether it's women related, whether it's youth related, it allows for a place like Nigeria that's a low trust society to have a truth machine. And it also incentivizes people to get paid as well. If you're right, you make money. And what I've realized is around the word betting, it is about context. And thank you, Habiba, for highlighting that for me, because you could say that Heritage House is betting on women, right? But that's not a gambling issue, right? With Accelerate Africa, you guys are betting on the next founders that are unlocking new sectors and opportunities. So I've learned to channel my message into this being more of a prediction market, allowing people to trade on the outcome of anything, as opposed to, oh yeah, you can bet on the news with Clouty. So